So, what does these words have in common? They have all been on one of Norway's most popular TV series, Skam, and are examples of digital language. In this presentation, we will take on the pros and cons of digital language. It can be very efficient to use, but it can also create communication noise. We will also talk about how digital language affects the way we speak. We define digital language as words and expressions that comes from digital communication, mainly written communication, to communicate more effectively. Many of these words are acronyms such as LOL, which comes from laughing out loud, and BTW, which means by the way. Words like selfie has become an independent term. A digital language has developed in line with the internet from the mid-90s, where emails, text messages, and chat began to use shortcomings and terms to express themselves more precisely and not at least more effectively. This means, for example, that instead of writing whole words like U and R, you just write the letters U and R. This language is reserved for informal use, such as communication with friends, and it will not be appropriate to write LOL. It would be awesome to work with you in a job application. Appropriate context may be a pitfall in the use of digital language, but there are several significant advantages of using these words and terms. Frida will talk more about that.
A very big advantage of using a digital language is effectiveness. For example, it takes less time to write "You are my BFF for real, Ilu" than to write "You are my best friend forever, for real, I love you." This is an advantage because we get many messages on all possible platforms. For example, I've sent 220,000 snaps over the last few years. Then it goes without saying that I don't have time to write full words to everyone. Another reason is that multiple platforms like Twitter and Snapchat have limited numbers of characters, so it's about making the most of the space you've got. Another benefit of digital language is that several of the terms are very precise descriptions, and that it would be much more comprehensive if these terms did not exist. An example of that is the word FOMO, which stands for fear of missing out, which again describes a feeling of being left outside or missing something fun. A third advantage of digital language is that it builds a feeling of unity between people who use it. Using words like LOL or BFF or DESP shows that you belong to a social group who use these words in their daily language. The sense of togetherness can be enhanced by the fact that not everyone is aware of the expressions. This also emphasizes the importance of person-centered communication. To be understood, you must customize your language to the receiver. An example of this is when I'm going home to Sandefjord, I can't ask my mom to buy PM. I need to write Pepsi Max to make sure that the soda is in the fridge when I get home.
Like Frida says, digital language can absolutely make communication easier, but it can also be a hinder for good communication. There are several reasons for that. One of the main arguments is that the meaning of the communication can disappear unless the receiver is familiar with the words or phrases being used. Say that I write "sup" to you. For you to understand the word and be able to answer correctly requires you knowing that "sup" is a rewriting or shortening of the words "what's up." Digital language is arbitrary and ambiguous, which means that it isn't necessarily obvious what words like BRB, ASAP, or GF means. For example, I know that BRB means "be right back." Well, you might think that BRB means "big raw burger." To get an image of how many people who doesn't understand words like BRB, all you have to do is Google them. Google quickly presents you with search options like BRB meaning or BRB is short for, which means that you are not the first person who have gone wondering what these words mean. So, Another element that can make digital language difficult is the absence of non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication includes symbols that aren't words, such as facial expressions, postures, or tone of voice, which gives a language nuance. The absence of non-verbal communication in digital communication itself can make it hard to grasp the correct meaning. So, when an extra barrier is added in form of digital language, it can be extra hard to understand what the messenger is saying. The reason for that is that non-verbal communication like facial expressions, tone of voice, etc. can signalize irony, a joking tone, or anger, which means that a sentence like LOL, that's awesome, can have several different meanings.
So the word LOL is, by the way, a good example of digital language that has sneaked into our everyday speech. In addition, we find words like selfie and YOLO that has become so popular that they have found their way from the keyboard to our daily language. Selfie was named the word of the year in 2013 by the Oxford Dictionaries, which says something about how popular the word has become.
Like you have heard in this presentation, there are both pros and cons of using digital language. Words like stop and lol can make communication very quick, but it can also be a hinder to understanding the correct meaning. Either way, we don't see Facebook or email or Twitter going anywhere the next couple of days, so digital language is here to stay.
The most important thing for you and me is to practice person-centered communication to make sure that the receiver understands what we're trying to say, either it's PM or Pepsi Max.